Good.
Give me a second, make sure we all straight. So you a vet. I don't need to coach you on anything. We're gonna get into it. Bill, you already introduced yourself.
I didn't, but I will really
No,
My
quick.
bad.
go
Go
for it,
ahead.
man.
Pleasure to meet you, man. Billy McClellan, present day human resources recruiting manager at a tech adjacent company after spending a few years in, proper tech of the magnificent Seven or AKA Fang. And also part-time football coach at a junior college in Los Angeles, coaching DBs, play football at Kansas State University. And so two part of working in somewhat business, but also giving back to the next generation, using football as a platform and try to get the message out that, quite frankly, what we're talking about now is use your sport as your platform, but when it's over, have a tactical plan thereafter, and how you unpack that is more or less the goal and the vision.
I like that, man. I like that. Thank you. So that's actually interesting. So you're currently coaching, but your main role is in tech and in recruitment. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Man, that is tough. I know many I'll say part-time coaches where it's put down on paper as part-time, but I'm sure it feels like it's pretty much full-time. Going through your mind of the plays and the players and how do I get the best out of them and how are they going to do this?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot of like time commitment. I definitely log a lot more hours than what I'm compensated for, and I actually am compensated like on the payroll with the school, and it pales in comparison. But that's not entirely quite why I do it. But to your point, my wife hates football season because a lot of my time is spent the additional time in game planning, watching film, getting these guys scouting reports like to the T, where we're watching packages and like that's table stakes. What personnel is the offense runs? What's the percentage of that run pass keys? But even breaking it down to we got their top three receivers. What does their release package look like? How do they like to block and come off the ball? What do they do when they run condensed splits? And so trying to give them a version of what they'll get at the Division One level is what we try to give them as we prepare them. And it's time consuming. It is a lot of time invested. But to be very honest, Ryan, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I don't know how to do it and do it halfway. Like there is no in between. I'm either all in or I'm all out.
Yeah. No, fully with you, fully with you. And I get it. I see. I've been there. I've been there to a part myself as that sort of coach. And it's funny you're saying your wife hates football season because she's probably looking at I don't know, I'll say the 15 games or whatever in the season, and you're like, no, I've got preseason, I've got training, I've got recruitment. So
Mhm.
it's a 45-week
Absolutely.
season.
Exactly. And then it lingers after the season because you're still gonna do some research and then look at some other
Yeah, it's
stuff.
like
That's how it
that
goes.
play, that game.
Exactly. So it's interesting, Ryan. Us three, we actually have a lot in common, not only for the things that we're passionate about as far as in sports, but even our background. All three of us has been in the financial industry at some capacity. I know you and I, Ryan, when we first had a conversation, I told you the firm that I was at, but my good friend Billy was the reason why. He was pretty much not my recruiter, but he was the one who brought me on. And by me having that experience allowed me to see how important it was, not only for just regular people to be financially literate, but particularly athletes, no matter what level that they get the opportunity to play on. And I know later in this conversation we're going to go there, but I want to kind of start from the beginning because although we're on this platform together, we are from two opposite parts of the globe, pretty much. And please refresh me: are you from Europe or are you from Australia? If I'm getting it mixed up, or you just lived there for a little bit?
British born,
Britain. Okay.
in England, first generation born in the UK from
Okay.
Caribbean parents, from St. Kitts and Nevis. I should just call that out. But then we moved over. I moved over with the family, as in my wife and our boys, to Australia. First time about 18, 19 years ago, but most recently, just 7 years, 8 years, we've been here now in Sydney, loving life.
That's where the Australia came from. Okay. And we're gonna use the word football, even though your sport is the original football, but here in America we
Yeah.
call it football. We call it soccer. I don't know who came
I
up with
could
the term soccer, right?
say soccer. It's okay. Well, actually, I'll let you know then. So I know we'll come to it, but I remember when I was coaching in the US, and that's where I was actually schooled on why it's called soccer. Because I'm like football. Like, no, it's soccer. I'm like, okay, let's figure out why it's called soccer. And it's because it's association rules. So I used to play in a different way. Then I said it's football association. And association became a soc, and then it was soccer. So then it became soccer football. And then
Oh,
there was American football, Australian football, rugby football, and then everything came. So I'm okay with soccer because it means we're saying association football. So I'm good.
got it. Perfect. That makes sense. That makes sense. So I want to know something in particular. You being from Great Britain and being introduced to soccer. I know soccer on a global stage is the most popular sport here in the United States is football, actually. But what attracted you to the sport? Was it your community or is it something that you just naturally gravitated to?
You know, it is a younger brother story. So my older brother Marcel, he and I we were raised by my mum, effectively just raised by my mum, and so he's just over 2 years older than me. And when he was maybe 10, 11 years old, he wanted to go play football. He wanted to go play soccer, and so off he went. And me as a little brother, I'm thinking, wow, that's cool. He's going off. He's getting to play. And so as I got older, maybe maybe I was 11, something like that. He went off and he was playing, and I said, "Oh well, I want to play." I was like, "You can play, but you go play with your big brother."
Mm,
So I went and I joined his team. So I was 2 years younger than everybody else. So if I wanted to do sport, it was go with my brother. My mum could only, get us out the house, but you got to be in a
yeah,
pack. You got to go
yeah,
together. And so I I wouldn't say I fell in love with the sport. What I loved being was I loved being around my brother. I loved being around his friends. I was looking up to them. I was relatively the smaller kid, whilst I was big for my age. I was still much smaller than those guys. That's what drew me into this environment of playing the game, and it's like a family. It was just a bit of fun, and you would um, go travel, away games, home games, but you'd kind of celebrate the wins and pick yourself up from the losses. That's what really got me into the sport. And it wasn't really until um, maybe as he was hitting under 15s, under 16s, for me at 12, 13, where I guess the physical advantage, muscle, speed really came into play. And it was, okay, Ryan, maybe it's time for you to go and play with your own age group. I was a bit disappointed. Big kids
right.
didn't want me anymore. But I then went and played in my own age group. And suddenly, I was like a head taller
Yeah.
than everyone else rather than being a head smaller. I would go to shoulder barge somebody and they'd go flying and they'd be like, whoa, hold on. I thought I was going to have to put all my effort in. So I'm used to putting in 100% on every tackle, every run in order to keep up. And suddenly that 100% meant I was that bit faster, that bit stronger, that bit more aware of how to play the game. And that's suddenly where I probably started to enjoy playing even more so.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how, and so I sort of burst onto the junior level, burst onto that junior scene because of power, of pace, and I had a voice, right? Because I'm used to having to shout to the big kids, "Give me the ball, it's my turn."
Mm.
Suddenly, when I'm saying that to some of my own age, they're like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, here's the ball.
Yeah.
This is good. I like this." So that's how I got into soccer effectively.
Interesting. I never thought of it. And now that you said, like, we hear stories about, like, especially out here in California, there's football families. You know what I mean? And like, you'll hear about the big brothers being good, but the one that makes it all the way is usually the little brother. And the reason why is because he had to, keep up with the big brothers. And by the time he got to his level,
Yeah.
he or she was so superior that they just stood
Yes.
out. I might want to do some
Yeah.
research on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, for me and my brother, he was awesome. And I'm sure like many of those stories, you'd think he should have made it. He was the one who was truly passionate about the game of football. He was the one who had the skill, the the footwork, he'd take players on. He was the one who was top scorer in the whole county, right? So that's how good he was. We didn't have the knowledge. We didn't know how to get scouted, how to get into the right team, what the right teams were in order to really progress in the game. We just played what was in front of us. This is who you play. Okay, where do you want to play next season? I want to play here again next season. There wasn't the I don't know, that push, that view on,
Yeah.
well, actually, go play at this team, and this is where you might get to.
Right. The strategy behind it, especially like now how it is out here, like you'll see a family playing on multiple teams and just being more strategized as far as in like, all right, you're going to play to this team to get this exposure, et cetera. Same as with Bill and I, like you'll sign up at the park that's down the street because it's convenient, you know? I mean, and if you're good enough to stand out, then you'll get the opportunity versus now I'm even guilty of it. Like, hey, what type of team environment is this? How are they training? You know, what are some of the things you're being exposed to as an athlete perspective? And then sometimes I have to sit back and I'm like, well, I made it as far as I did. I'm like, and like I said, my mom and dad just dropped me off at the park.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's
And
right.
like figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think of it how it is now. What about you, Bill? Your experience.
Wish parents could actually go back to that. Like I think we've over engineered training at a young age and have lost the intentionality of like their kids. It's designed for them to have fun. If they are athletic, then you continue to pursue that. But I think it's like as early as 8 in some of these sports, they're doing specialized training or trying to attach onto teams that are good that may travel versus the latter of what we experience of like it was proximity. That's where you win because it just got you out of the house from breaking things because you're a boy and you just want to get out and do boy things. But how much society has changed is completely crazy.
Yeah. And so if you and your brother, you guys naturally grew a love for the sport, but then you guys realized like, hey, I'm kind of good at this. I might have some future opportunities. Now, once that light bulb clicked on, of course, the competitive nature changes and the passion changes. Did you guys at an early stage say, hey, this is what can kind of get me out of my environment, or was it just still pure love of the sport?
For me, it remained pure love. Actually, I'm not going to say love at this, pure enjoyment. I just enjoyed playing. It didn't, to me, seem to matter where I did it. My brother, he went on. I remember at the turning point. A turning point for us was, and as I speak to my mum, she reflects on it as well. But the turning point for me was we went on a residential camp. A week. It was people, kids who just applied to go on it. Cover coaching a style of football, a very famous style of soccer coaching called cover coaching. We went to this cover coaching camp, and again, I went because my brother went. You know, not again. He stayed on it. But what became important is that after that, people were invited to another session, an invitation only elite camp, and I was invited to that session, but my brother wasn't. So that was this interesting point on, but he's he's the good one. I'm just here for fun. Um,
Right.
and that was a turning point where suddenly we started to realize, hold on, there's something good here. Maybe at my own age group, yeah, I felt that I was faster, stronger, and could play. But now other people were starting to recognize that. So maybe at that 13, 14, I started to realize I, I'm good at this, and other people know that I'm good at this sport. And
Mm.
then started to be, okay, well, what could that mean? So that season is where I did my first trials for the school's representative team to start representing Leeds, the city, start playing for Leeds. I didn't get in the trial. Only as I reflect do I realize that I traveled there by bus, did all the navigation, did all of that by myself. For many of the others, they were driven there. It was nice and
Right.
easy. I did the bus, got there, didn't make it, got the bus home. But I didn't really mind because I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. The next season, under 13s, 14s, I got in, but I was invited this time. I didn't trial. I was just told,
Mm.
right, tap on the shoulder, want you to come training. And that's when it just started accelerating. I started playing for the city at 13s, played again at 14s, was captaining the team as well at 15s. And you saw this crop of players at that age really starting to, I guess, create something special. Um, However, it was perhaps more special than I was because I was released. I was told, okay, we got to 15s and that was it. But rather than continue down the path that Leeds United and keep moving, I went to another club called Huddersfield Town. Now, in England, what's interesting is we've got, I'm going to say 92, I'm going to say probably nowadays 100 professional soccer clubs. So that's 100 clubs,
Whoa.
right? where you're a pro. It's your job. You wake up, you get paid, you earn a living, and we've got 100 of them, right? A
Teams or 100
hundred,
clubs?
a
Oh,
hundred
clubs are a
clubs.
team. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
100 clubs, 100 teams. Yeah, where you could be a professional footballer, which is pretty cool if you love football. That tells you how passionate we are about
Yeah.
football, or how passionate we are about soccer. Definitely.
That is.
I'm sorry. I gotta say, look, Bill, we should have played sports over there. Can you imagine if it was 100 teams to play pro? Like we'd have made it. We'd have got a shot.
Well, here's my question to you, Ryan. Like of those leagues, I'm assuming that's inclusive of like the Premier League. Yes,
Yes, that's right. Premier League's at the
Okay.
top.
Premier League's at the top. And so of those 100 clubs, how many leagues and what's the pay disparity between the leagues?
So those 100, and I'll add a few more, maybe 100 and what did I say? So we've got 92. 92 of those clubs are in what you would call the true professional, and you're going to have the Premier League, then the Championship, then one, then two,
Got it.
and then
Got it.
typically you've got the conference, which would be that fifth tier, of which there you're going to have 10 of maybe, what are there, maybe 18 or 20 clubs in that division. They're going to be professional because they're going to be training to get into the pro league itself.
Got it.
So you got 100 places where you could be a professional footballer. Now, if I do a rough translation, you're going to be earning probably at the bottom end of their 50,000 US. 50,000 US. Of course, as we know, 50,000 US, if you're 21, 22 and in 50,000 US,
It's
man,
great.
you're loaded.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yep.
is this is good. This is a good life. But as we get on to, if you're um 30, 32 and you're on that 50,000 US, now you can still be living still be living well off
Yeah.
50,000 US, but that's going to stop because you're going to retire.
Mhm.
And then that's where that challenge comes in terms of, well, how do you maintain then that 50,000? That 50,000, sorry, I should say, crazily, that obviously goes up then to the millions if you're in the Premier League, and you're earning, I don't know, 20. Am I foolish to say 20 million a year? I'm trying to figure out.
No, you're not
No,
foolish.
I'm not.
Yeah. 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 It's about sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So,
I'm more.
so in a parallel world, because I'm just trying to parallel it to the sport that we play, which is football. So then that would be almost like Bill, if you and I played Canadian or arena, because that's usually 30 to 50, right? And
Yeah,
it's funny as you get older, you got to make a decision if you're gonna be able to make the jump or not, because as you said, like 50 is cool in your early 20s. You start trying to have a family or the demands of life. If you're not getting NFL money, you might want to start thinking of some other things to do.
yeah. I think a better parallel, J-Bo, might be just the minors in the MLB, right? Like you've got
Yeah,
rookie ball, single A,
yeah,
double A, triple A, then
That's it.
majors, and all of them
Yes.
are getting paid, right? And to his point, when you're 18, 19, whatever age you enter into that farm system, those checks are good. It's a couple $1,000s a week. You're like, oh, I'm living the
Mm,
life. And then you age, you get some responsibilities. You don't necessarily climb. And then it becomes, what's the exit route? What's the exit plan? I need to make more.
yeah,
correct. That
yeah.
makes sense. Okay, so now this is making sense. So it sounds like you're having, like I said, this experience. You're getting these signs that saying, "Hey, I'm good enough," although there's setbacks, and that's for every
Hmm.
athlete's journey. You're going to have those setbacks. I want to kind of know and get into your mentality at this time and what's
Hmm.
starting to shift for you as you're aging. And the thing is, you're not on this journey alone because you have an older brother who can kind of lead an example. But if you could kind of share, what is your mentality forming around just being an athlete during this?
So what I started to realize was, for me, the playing and the fitness was becoming really important to me. And at this time, I started to play. Back then, I'm playing at school, I'm playing representative, I'm playing club. So I'm playing 6 times a week, right? Easy. Now, okay, I'm not getting the same hits as I would do if I'm playing American football, but it's still quite, it's taken its toll. The big decision point came really at perhaps 15, 16, when you start thinking about further education. So we can leave school at 16. So that would be, you can do after sophomore in high school,
That's a sophomore
you
in high
would,
school. Yeah.
yeah. Then I knew at that point that I was leaving school. So I'm not going to do my junior, senior years. So sophomore in high school. And because that's how it is, right? I'm leaving school at 16 and I'm thinking, if I'm going to give this a go, then I need to be strong enough. I need to be fit enough. I need to really start focusing in on
Yeah.
making this my path. Now, on one side, my mum, bless her, she's saying, you're studying, you do your revision, and off you go and do all of that kind of piece. But so I was doing that, but it was really starting to focus in on saying, right, well, how am I going to be showing up for training? How much effort am I going to be putting in? And I'd be traveling 20 miles for training. Okay, so I'm a 15, 16-year-old, 20 miles, a bus, a 30-minute train, another bus, and
Yep.
then a bit of a walk to get to training. At the time, that's just what I did, right? What's really odd, right, especially knowing what I know now, is going through that process for me was just that's what I have to do to play. I didn't see it as special. I didn't see it as an extra level of commitment or focus to make it happen. To me, it was just what I had to do. So there was no mindset shift for me in playing. I was just enjoying it. It was like, I have to go play over there. Okay,
Mhm.
that's where I go.
Yeah.
I didn't even, now just to give you that concept, right? That 20 miles was playing for a club, Huddersfield Town, in a town or in a city that is only 20 miles away. But I hadn't heard of it until I was going there, right?
Yeah.
And that's just because of the world that I grew up in, right? I just didn't know it. So for me, getting there was absolutely fine. But what did change was in the way I played on the field.
Mhm.
What I started to recognize and really, started to enjoy was the team. And I had I mentioned before, I found this voice, and suddenly I was encouraging my teammates, talking to my team, lifting my team, trying to bring them along with me, really recognizing that in order for us to win, which I wanted to do, I needed them to play. I needed them to focus. I needed them to want it just as much. And so without knowing what leadership or what
What I
what
was
what
about to say.
captaining,
Yeah.
what that meant, I was starting to say, "Come on, guys, come on, we got to do this together. This is what I need from you today. This is how we're going to go make it happen." And that's where I started to sort of shift and recognize perhaps what it took to win, or for us to play well, rather than my own sort of commitment or any sort of focus in that.
That makes sense. Yeah, that was the first thing that stood out to me. It's like, all right, not only were you starting to kind of identify your voice, but you were starting to kind of form your identity of you just being a natural leader because you were just so passionate about it and it was so routine to you. You're like, okay. And to be honest with you, you were around leadership prior to by playing with your older brother and the older kid. So you saw what it took. So you kind of already had that high level of maturity to kind of instill those things once you got to your age group. That's a great experience to be able to, one, you being wise enough at that young age to be able to even identify that. Because a lot of times I even see it now with kids. I know, Bill, you probably see it. You'll see a leader in a kid and he doesn't even realize he's a leader. And he's usually the knucklehead. You're like, bro, if you could just get it together, bro, you got all the intangibles. So what I want to also know, so you're going through this journey and you're getting these opportunities. Because how long was your full playing career, if you don't mind me asking?
So I came out of pro football by 21, and by then I was in what's called semi-pro football. Again, after you go the 100 pro teams, you're then dropping down to a semi-pro level where you're still earning similar money to that bottom end, but you're working. Or for me at the time, I then started studying as well at that same process. Y- so across that whole era, you can say I was 25 was where I effectively stopped being paid to play sport.
Jabo, before you ask that question,
Yeah,
also,
yeah. Go ahead.
what age you turn pro?
16,
16. Okay.
'Cause
17,
the age, because
17.
that's the age
Yeah,
where you don't have to go back to school. So okay,
Leaving school at 16, turning pro at 17, and like now it's full time. I'm a pro. I'm working on my
full
craft.
time. Yeah, absolutely. Look, so our season, this preseason starts end of June, right? For an August start. and it'll finish in, let's say, May. So I did my, if you take yourself back to exams in school, so I did my last exam of that, what we're saying, sophomore year, did my last exam to get my certificate at something like June 15th. We had our leaving party on the Friday night. Everyone celebrates. On Monday, I was at pre-season, running around the oval, like vomiting, tripping up,
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, running. And there's the weirdest experience because at 16, adults are teachers, parents, aunties and uncles, right?
Yep.
They're like this. Thank you, sir. Yeah, okay. And then, so I finished that on the Thursday, party Friday with my mates. On Monday, Tuesday, I'm running around with adults. Like these are men swearing, cussing, talking about their weekend,
They got
talking
bills.
about their holidays. Yeah, and I'm just like, whoa, hold on.
Drinking, pint conversations, the whole nine.
Yeah.
The whole thing, the whole thing. And this is at the end, this is where, some of the older players were still smoking.
Mhm.
The health, the fitness was really just kicking in at this time. So I've got, this guy, 30 odd, famous player, having a quick cigarette, and I'm like, what's going on? Just this quick turnaround from being a kid wanting to be a footballer through
Yeah.
to boom, I'm here. What is going on?
How do you even you don't get the process? It's like because you better adjust and adapt right away, or you won't be there that long, right? Because I mean, it's still
That's right.
cutthroat. It's sports, right? So it's like 1 minute, like you said, you're probably walking to the stage, shaking hands, congratulations, and 48 hours later, it's like, hey, I'm in the thick of things with all these grown ass men. Jeez,
Yes. Yeah.
at 16.
Man,
Okay,
Yeah.
so you had to mature very fast. Now, I like what you mentioned earlier about how, okay, it's short-lived, just like how sports is out here, man. You
Hmm.
get 2.5, 4 if you're lucky. I know we see the stories about the guys that get a chance to play the 10 and 20 years. I know we hear the LeBrons, but that's not normal out
Hmm.
here. You know what
That's
I mean?
right.
Most people, you get your 3.5 to 4, almost like we call it a college term. If you're lucky if you get
Yeah.
another 4 years of play, then a lot of people don't just stop. And that's what I want to get into because this is something we've dedicated our lives to ever since we were yay high. So you don't just be like, all right, I'm about to go look for a job. You usually slowly, slow down. Similar to like you said, like you might go semi-pro or even just play in a local rec league just to kind of get the last little bit out of you. And it sounds like that's what you did. So if you can kind of take me on a journey mentally, how were you processing that? Like, all right, it's almost over. And
Hmm.
when you were thinking that, were you already starting to think of your backup plan, or were you like most of us athletes didn't know what the heck was going to be next?
Yeah. I didn't know what was going to be next. I remember walking into the room and at Huddersfield and them telling me that they're not renewing my contract. And I was surprised because I was captaining the team, and in my mind it was I just need to keep showing up and doing what I do, right? And I'll just keep playing. That's what football is. That's fine. This is pro sport, but that isn't pro sports, right? Just showing up and doing the right thing isn't enough. But I didn't know that. I just got to keep playing. But for me, there wasn't a desire to go. There wasn't a knowledge. I'm going to say a knowledge to go anywhere else. So you think geographically, if you can play in the UK being, I will probably incite lots of anger by saying, let's just assume the UK is the top league,
Right,
as the top
right. I knew that
leagues
was coming.
across Europe. Yeah.
Right, right.
Now you got to remember, for me to get over to France, to anywhere else in Europe, it's an hour. It's a 2 hour flight, which in the US terms is nothing. So I was given opportunities to go over to Sweden, to go into Belgium, to actually even go up to Scotland to trial. And I was like, nah, my mum at the time was like, nah, you don't go, stay where you are. Let's get university, right? You've missed out on
Mm,
that additional piece. Stay where you are and don't go to and make university count. Now, we didn't know any differently. We didn't realize how good I was, right? Of those 92
right.
teams, I'm at the 25th best team in the country, okay? And I'm playing at 19, I'm 20 years old, I'm playing with men, I'm doing what could his now I look, I think I could have just dropped further down and then just worked my way up. I was playing against men at a very young age. I would
Right.
probably, possibly have been okay had we realized the perspective on where I was. So for me, I just thought, damn, I'm not going to captain England. I'm not going to, therefore, why do it? If I'm not going to be the best, why bother? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I didn't have was perspective. What I couldn't see was the bigger picture in terms of the game, which is life isn't linear. You don't just go one and up and keep going. So for me, that was quite a crushing moment where it was, I'm, oh, I'm not going to be the best at this. Okay, what do I need to do now? Right, the next big thing. And as my brother said, he said, "Nah, don't take it as a disappointment. You don't think you're the best at that. Just go be the best at something else." Okay, and I can still keep playing football. It's like, yeah, you go play semi-professionally. So I went to the fifth tier.
Yeah.
Got it, man. I'm still playing up at the top here, playing at the top tier, but I didn't see that. To me, it was just crushing. And so I'm like, right, I want to be the best student. So I'm going to go to university. 9 o'clock lecture, I'm there. Boom. 9 a.m. lectures, I was there for my lectures. What else do students do? They get part-time jobs. Okay, I'm going to get a part-time job. Went and worked at the Marriott. Worked at the Marriott Hotel as a barman. And then I'm still going training now at 7 p.m. At night.
So you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, pretty much.
Absolutely, but still trying to go 100%, still trying to get it all done and be the top of all of the game. And I wasn't. I saw my football, and the football as the measure was declining. My happiness was declining. As I look back now, there was a sense of, I might call it depression. I'm going to say we didn't really use that term back then as a player
Yeah.
coming out of it. You would just
Right.
get up, or you
Yeah.
get on
Yep.
with it.
Yep.
But you didn't want to. I didn't want to get it. I didn't want to do all this stuff, but I was going through the motions because I felt that's what was expected of me. And so when I think about that year of trying to manage university studies, part-time job, still trying to play at the fifth tier, it got really hard. It got really hard for me on a personal level to keep going and sort of want to be my best self and really, and really sort of move forward. But honestly, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have another plan. It was just, I'm
Yeah.
just hitting what was in front of me.
Man, if we all had $1 for how many similar stories we have, we'll all be rich right now. Because it's and it's even worse for a first generation athlete, right? Where this is your first rodeo, and there's not a parent that's done it before that can be like give you, like you said, perspective, or even a coach that served more of a mentor that can kind of walk you through the steps and the progressions. Like this is how it's going to look. Also, this is how it's going to feel. You know what I mean? And be like, but here's your options. Let's make the most out of your option. It's almost like you got to experience on your own, and it's painful. I don't think people outside of the athletic world understand how mentally, psychologically, and emotionally painful it is, because it's some people it get ripped right from them, like being
Mhm.
injured or just being cut, but others it's almost like a slow wound because you're still a part of it. Like you said, you're still playing, and so you're like the athlete in you is like, okay, there's hope. I can get picked up by another team. I can move up. But then it's like the logic in you is like, well, let me take care of business and be responsible. Let me go and learn. Let me get a job, and we all know like it's damn near impossible to do,
That's
both
right.
because you got to be laser. That's tough. How long did it take you to kind of get out of your slump a little bit?
Mm. I'm going to say I think it lasted the year. Now, it lasted the year. The reason I say that is because I I actually at the end of my first year of college, the football season was a write-off. It was a absolute nightmare. I remember, I still feel it now. I remember playing a game and I'm being rubbish, like rubbish. A game's 90 minutes, and I was substituted, so I was taken off. I have no idea when, an hour maybe. Hopefully, I lasted an hour because it's just this dark patch in my mind. And so I remember that, and that was kind of that was towards the second half of the season. So I know I didn't come out of it until I was given the opportunity to coach soccer over in the US.
Mm.
And that you got to remember that for me, I'd probably only been overseas back to St. Kitts with my mum. to see family when I was like 5 or 6. I think we drove to Disneyland Paris
Hmm.
when I was about 14, 15, which gave me a view of the world, which we kind of come back to. And then this over with football, but then this trip was someone coming to me and saying, "Hey, you're a former pro footballer, a pro soccer player. We're trying to get quality coaches to come over to and coach over the US and start to build the game in
Yeah.
the US." And I was like, me as a coach, I got the badges because he did that as a player. They kind of just made you do it as a young. So I got the me as a coach. I don't know. I'm a player, but actually, I don't like playing. I don't even know if I like football at the moment. Okay,
Right.
these are the bits going through my mind. But then someone coming to me and saying, "No, no, I remember you playing, and you commanded, you spoke, you did all that kind of stuff." It's like, oh. So I went to the session to trial of sorts as a coach. Said, "All right, you need you to run a session, do a warm up, take them through a session, and do a progression." And I was like, "Okay, plan it out. I've done this before." Went to the session, and again noticed. I was like, "Wow, this guy who's doing the warm up here, why has he got them doing this? He should be telling them this. He should be telling what's going on, right?"
Yeah.
My turn. Boom, boom, boom. Ryan, Gonsalves, excellent. Well done. You're going to be. We'll be in touch formally. Again, perspective. I didn't appreciate that I'd been privileged or lucky enough to be at this elite level, this top level, which
Yeah.
many others hadn't, which meant me showing up and doing what I just thought was hashed together. You know, I'm a young kid, right? So it's probably a night or 2 nights before. And hashed together was of a quality standard. So it was that moment is where I sort of got this sense of I'm I am good at this. Now I can see myself against others. Wow, maybe there's more to life. So it was that was, that was this turning point for me. And that's why I remember it so vividly, was me being able to step up or step out into this whole new world and go, I'm going to go over to the US and coach soccer.
Yeah.
Wow. And
That makes
that's where
sense.
things really started to completely change my whole perspective on sport, on life, and I guess and on myself.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I got so many dang thoughts running through my mind. On perspective, like a lot of times as athletes, we get so hard on ourselves, especially when we don't reach our internal expectation. So it's almost like we throw the baby out with the bathwater, man. And like, well, since I'm not all the way here or on this platform anymore, then I'm used goods, right? Until someone on the outside looking in is like, no, you've made it far enough to where you still know more than 99% of the people. You know what I mean? You can add value. I'm guilty of it. That's the reason why that resonates, because I probably would have had the same response if someone would have pulled me to the side, like, would you like to train or would you like to do X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, no, I didn't play on Sundays. But you played at high level collegiately and you still play professional arenas. Like, no, you have something to offer. But then at the same time, I will go to like a camp or see something, same thing as you, and be like, why are y'all doing it like this? Why are you guys, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you do know what you know based off your experience. And Bill and I, we got an old saying, like, if you study something, you put a decade in it. You've been playing since you said about 8 years old, right? And you were done typically around 25. You are a top tier pro as far as in just
Mm,
experience. You know what I mean? As many games, you probably played over 1,000 games. You been kicked the ball probably a million times. Like,
yeah.
you would have a PhD in that, equivalent in that field. But we don't look at it that way because we're still looking at what the top person, the best person on the, in the world is. That's interesting how our mental is shift that way. Um, Geez, sorry, I just had to throw that out there.
It's
Go
true.
ahead.
I resonate with it fully. Perspective. It's just powerful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even at the start, we're chatting about coaching and the perspective we bring, and Jabari, I think you're quite right. We're still looking up here, and it's like, oh, man, if I'm only looking up at that one piece, I can't see what's behind me, or even what's alongside me. It's just that singular focus that helps us get to where we got to,
Right.
but sometimes it doesn't truly assist us in life.
Right. Before we transition into to halftime, I do want to close this segment up because this was very important. And Ryan, you and I both know that every athlete is going to go through what you just experienced in some capacity, whether they leave on the top or at a lower level. They're going to have that moment to where they have to self-reflect and deal with what they considered a failure or loss, which is it's not. No matter what level you end, it was an experience and an opportunity, and then they kind of got to rediscover who they are. And in order to do that, it's almost like it's inevitable. You got to kind of go through that dark place. That's just the process. You can't run from it.
Yes.
I haven't heard a story yet to where somebody was like, "Yeah, I had to quit." Like, I'm not someone else passionate about the sport. I've
Mhm.
never heard him be like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I just did something else." So you're going to go through that, right? And it seems like what got you out of that dark moment was, I would say, a blessing in disguise, an opportunity that you weren't even trying to seek, kind of shift that narrative to allow you to kind of go do something else and look at life through a different lens. So, with that being said, before we go to the next one, what would be the best advice that you would give an athlete that you know is going to have to go through that transition moment? Give them the tools that they will need to kind of go through it both mentally and emotionally.
You know, I've got to say, own the grief, own it,
Mm,
right? So, as much as we can prepare, I'll say physically, tactically, we can put things in place. The emotional side of it will overwhelm you more than you can think. And, you kind of touched on it, but it is own the grief, name it, feel it, be aware of what it is so that you can start to build from there. But trying to avoid it and push it to the side, no, I'm fine, I'm cool, I'm good, it's all right, yeah, I'm just moving on, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, that hides it. And it means you're just extending that period of anguish, of loss for much longer than it needs to be. So I think preparing for that emotional grief is the most important aspect. Right. Now, with that being said, in order to get through it, then you want to set yourself up. Setting yourself up for me means initially looking at your support crew. Who have you got on your team? Who have you got there so that you can have that moment of crying, have that moment of self-reflection? So it is starting to take back and sort of say to yourself, okay, um, I need my crew around me. Who are my people? Who's going to help me get through this? Because it's going to be tough.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
The funny thing, I'll give you a random story that where that comes from. I'm blessed to have three boys. I remember for my first, we never had a baby. We're never ready for it. Okay.
yeah,
As much as you think you are, you're doing all this. So we've got the bag packed. We've got my wife's bag. It's packed. It's ready. And we're like, okay. And what's in the bag? We've got the blanket. We've got the toys. We've got medication. We've got the overnight. So we've got all of this stuff prepared. Okay. Because we're going to go through this emotional and physical moment together. All right. But we're ready. And then the moment comes, what happens? I forget the bag. Of course, I forget the bag. All right. But it didn't matter at the time, right?
yeah,
There for one another. We'd done the
yeah.
training. We had the emotional. We were practiced. We knew where we were going. All of that stuff was there. But at least we prepared the bag. So for me, that really just goes through this point on it's that emotional piece, but you need that support crew with you. Be prepared, and we can chat the toolkit and all of that a bit later on. But I'm just like, all of that stuff can happen, but the biggest thing I've got to say is own the grief, feel it, and it's from there. If you're prepared for that, then it's all good. You're going to move through it.
Well,
Hmm,
we're gonna have to coin that phrase if you don't mind. We'll definitely give you the credit, but on the grief, I think is a bar, J. Boy, we got to take and continue to use.
absolutely. Yeah, no,
All
yeah,
good.
absolutely. Like, sure, I felt like I just went to therapy just now. I'm like, I thought I done went. So on that note, to lighten things up, man, this is halftime corner. We can kind of make this a little bit more fun because I would love to know a little bit more about your culture. As we say, you're across the pond. Well, not anymore. You're on the other side of the world.
All the way over other
Exactly.
side. Yeah.
Exactly. So what are some of the things that you guys do out there for fun that's pretty, entertaining and that allows you to kind of relax a little bit?
Yeah, so in certainly in Australia, well, I think the reason we're here is the blue sky. It is you get a blue sky. I'm going to say nearly every day. So just about every day, you feel like you're on holiday here in Sydney. We are currently in the football finals season. Now, what does that mean? It means that people are watching rugby union football. We're watching NRL, so rugby league football, and we're watching AFL, Australian Football League as well. So we've got three different types of football, and I haven't even mentioned soccer. I'm watching Gridiron, or I'm watching NFL, which has just started as well. So with it being football, with it being coming into football final season, there is just sport everywhere. And one of the beautiful things about being in Sydney is wherever the sport, there's a barbecue. And being in Sydney, there's nearly always a beach. So you've got the ball, the barbecue, and beach. And that is the lifestyle that we've certainly bought into coming in here into Sydney.
Nice. And for our listeners that maybe not aren't familiar or have been across the pond, when you say always sunny, it's a very 180-degree difference from the UK, which is perpetually gray.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, England, UK is mostly grey. When we get a heat wave, we'll get a heat wave maybe for 2 weeks. But the truth is, you don't even know when that's coming. It could come in May, it could come in August, it could come in September. It just hits you. But then that'll be 2 weeks. Whereas here in Oz, moving, it's just so far. That's the only problem. It's just so far away from everything. It is a destination place. You don't pass through
Yeah.
Australia on your way to X.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, we're coming to Australia. Boom, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're coming, you're gonna be staying for a while. But like you said,
Yes.
it's a trek.
Yeah.
But I love
Yeah. Yeah.
that the weather is good. It kind of reminds me. So Bill and I, we're out here in California, and it's I mean, shoot, Christmas Day, it can be easily 80 degrees or 78 degrees. So we're spoiled that way, which makes
Hmm.
sports so fun, right?
Yes.
You mentioned the culture of it because, like I said, right now it's football season for us. So, the
Just
whole
kicking off.
weekend takes our attention because you got high school football, which is big out here. You got collegiate football. So high school football is Friday, collegiate football is Saturday, and then NFL is on Sunday.
Okay.
So
All
those are the
right.
three holy days,
Yeah.
pretty much. And like you said, it's barbecue. You either go to your local pub or sports bar, or you connect with your friends and kind of have a cookout in the backyard. So the culture is similar.
I love
But
I love that. And I love that sport. What you've described sounds absolutely awesome, right? Wow, that's so good. And it's all structured. You got the games, you've got the people, you've got that enjoyment. And I guess it might be slightly different in what we eat or how we eat, but effectively, man, we're getting together for the same stuff. I think
Yep.
that's
oh
just so
yeah.
cool.
Yep.
Absolutely. And because of that, like you said, you mentioned culture earlier, and that's what it creates. I believe the sports is the main
Mm.
ingredients that brings culture together because especially for football, which is I can say it's a very diverse sport, it brings all walks of life together. So you got people
Mhm.
different socioeconomic backgrounds and even different races and religions and creeds. And we have all one thing in common, which is the sport. You got your team, I got my team, and we're going to come together as a collective to try to dominate the next team. And our community is going to go and back us and support us. And because the community is there, all the other things come with it. And that's how you get the barbecues and all of these things. So, one of the things I wanted to touch in is how aggressive is sports culture out there in Australia.
Well, I think I have to say, not as aggressive as England or the UK,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
UK. In fact, I was speaking to we were at my son's musical recital yesterday, and I was speaking to a friend and he was just saying, oh, he was in England and he went to a few Premier League and Championship games when he was there, and he was going to take his son with him. And then he realized he was glad he didn't take his son because for one of the games, he was right near the away end and it was aggressive, right? It was like the things they were saying about each other, never mind the game. It was so personal. It was hard. So when you come to Australia, Australian sport typically is very family oriented.
Mhm.
And whilst they'll argue about what the national game is, let's say it is Australian rules football, let me give it its name, and it's a family thing. Mums, wives, kids come along with the men, but it's not just about the men, which is what it would be, I'd say, or traditionally would have been in England. So it's very family. The stadium, it's like it's a bowl, and so it's quite open, relatively relaxed. Many of the traditional grounds will have a grass bank. Okay, so
Mm.
not seated, it's like picnic blankets and things like that.
It gives you
Okay,
that environment. Yeah, that feel. Yeah.
yeah. And so if you're taking a picnic blanket you're taking your kids. You might drink, but you're going to be a lot more relaxed. It's going to be enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the environment more than that hard focused in that rectangle. Let's get this game going.
That makes sense. That makes total sense. All right. So the other thing, now we can move on a little bit, but I do, you know what, I'll save that one for the end because I would like to hear you guys' strategy. Both of you guys being parents that coached and played in perspective. So Bill, don't let me end this without asking that because I do want to touch that. You guys will be teaching me. So now I want to jump into what I mentioned in the beginning, which is all three of us have something in common, which is the financial literacy element of it. How did you, first of all, if you could kind of take us on your journey, how did you get involved in the financial industry when you did?
So how did I get into fin services? So I was, well, actually, yeah, I guess. So I was living in France at the time, and so my wife and I, after uni, football, and they're like, okay, now what do we do? How do you get a job? So we went down to south of France, lived on a campsite for a while, worked in a contact center, um, had fun, right? Just live life. And I was then trying to get a job. I did a degree. My undergrad was in marketing and French, hence we were living in France. And I couldn't get a job. I could not get a job in France. It's a challenging environment in order to get jobs anyway, France.
Right.
And so my wife was back in England. This is when ads were in the newspaper. And she saw this ad in the newspaper and said, oh, they were asking for people who've done a business degree who speak another language to work for General Electric, GE Capital. I was like, who's General Electric, right?
Right.
Was my wife. And I was like, General Electric, so we're 20 years ago, right? They're the biggest company in the world. And she's like, yeah, you want to apply? So anyway, so I applied for one of their management leadership programs. And the big thing was you had to do the numerical, the verbal reasoning, and you had to do a language test.
Mm,
And they were sort of downplaying this language. Said, so we're going to do a language test. It's going to be quite difficult. Da da da. And said, well, what is it? And said, oh, we're speaking in French. And I'm living in France. So this French person phones me on the phone, and I'm just having a chat. And then I was like, okay, so when does the interview begin? He said, oh, this is the interview. Oh, well, I live in France, so of course I'm speaking French. Okay, so I go
got it.
in, yeah. So this was me getting into financial services. Was what they were looking for. Wasn't a financial expert, but they were just looking for someone who they use language as what's the word? As the factor that determined if that person could travel and if that person was open to new cultures and things like that. So I
Mm,
passed the psychometric testing. And the fact I was already living in France,
yeah.
because GE's programs at the time was 6 months or 8 months in 4 different locations. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. That's fine. So that's how I got into financial services, was through that sort of random application and process that I went through with GE. Again, right place, right time. Whether I was good enough had I been in England or not, I don't know. But the fact I was in France meant I already spoke French.
Yeah.
So and it was lucky that my wife was back in England where she saw the advert, because there's nothing online, in the newspaper, and then told me about it back in France.
And what were you doing for GE at the time in that role?
So in GE, I joined their management leadership program, and that was just over a 2-year program, 4 different rotations. So when I joined, I went and worked over in Ireland. And again, I worked in the contact center because I had contact center experience. So I did Ireland, I did Stamford, Connecticut, I did Leeds, my hometown, which was great, and I did London. And so those 4 different things I managed to get myself. Mostly, I found myself from the contact center. I did M&A when I was in the head office in Stamford, Connecticut, which was awesome. They flew me around the world to go and manage due diligence rooms and do things like that. So, while commercial due diligence whilst they're buying companies. And I heard again, I see the CEO of G Capital, I see the CFO of G Capital, some fantastic names and ridiculously fast thinking minds pulling deals together where they're talking billions of dollars and things like that, which I couldn't really comprehend, but I could hear them and that kind of stuff. So being inside the deal room was, for those 4 years, being inside the deal room when GE are buying companies was probably one of the biggest,
Yeah.
most important moments of my financial life, because I could hear
Yeah.
business being done.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's amazing. It's amazing. And this is obviously you all kind of know, but I always try to give nuggets to our viewers. M&A is a business acronym for mergers and acquisitions. So when you acquire companies, but that is really neat stuff, man. Billions of dollars that's going to dictate profit margins and profitability from here on out.
Yes. Yeah.
To be able to be fly on the wall in those meetings is valuable. Like, and it's stuff that you're not going to learn at school. I'm gonna be
No,
honest with you
Right,
at
that's right.
all.
right. That's
That's
very true. That's very true.
So you being able to experience that, see that, I would love because I always like the parallels of an athlete working in different environments. Were you able to take any attributes or just a mentality that you learned from being a successful athlete into now the business world? And if so, what were those things?
Do you know when you do when you do video analysis? So video analysis, right? We do video analysis as an athlete, whether you win or whether you lose.
Yep, that's us. Yep,
Just about being better.
yep.
So I took that view, not that I knew it at the time, but that's what I took into my time at GE, where I was there for almost a decade, where it was just about being better and reviewing successes just as much as I reviewed the losses.
Hmm.
I'd be going, it's like, so, hey, I'll do a presentation. How's my presentation, boss? Yeah, it was good. Well, what was good about it? Oh, well, such and such. Okay, so
Let's
how
break
do I
it
make
down
that
like
better?
film.
Yeah, no, it was good. They liked it. Yeah, I know they liked it, but talk to me about, let's break this down. And so I think the biggest thing, so I always describe myself in the corporate world as quite needy. I'm like, listen, if I'm a new hire or even to my team coming up, I'm like, listen, I'm quite needy, right? Which means I'm always going to be asking for feedback. So I just, I just want to get it out there. I'm going to always ask, how was it? Do I need affirmation? I don't know, but I always want it to be better. Going into GE and being on a leadership program and having this desire to be better meant that I I was able to accelerate through the corporate ladder of sorts because I was inquisitive and I was open to learning.
That's interesting. And it's funny. It's like you always look for areas of improvement, but then the other thing too, and probably you can attest to this that I learned from being in these environments, you're going to be working with people that were probably ex-athletes and people that have never maybe stepped foot. And then one of the things I know me and Bill always joke about this is the feedback approach and how people can take or receive feedback or the people that couldn't. And it's funny, me and him, we used to make a joke because like they'll try to give us feedback and it sounded like they're trying to beat around the bush. It's like, man, just get to it. It's like I was the MF for 2 years ago for my coach. So I can handle anything you're gonna say. I'm not gonna take it personal. I needed to get better. And it was like I would hear how sometimes people would just break down just because they get a small critique. And I'm like, yo, if you want to be in an environment, whether you're helping, whether it be your own organization or you're helping a larger organization, you want the constructive criticism and you want to get better. So breaking down film is what we call it is it's necessary, it's a need, you know what I mean, and to be tedious that way. So it's interesting you being able to experience that same thing. I had another question about that. So the mentality that you use, that you applied, that was one. The other thing too, the competitive nature, were you in sales as well, or you were just putting the team together from leadership? Did you have to sell any products or anything like that?
So I was never what it's funny. Someone said to me, "You're really good at sales," and I'm like, "No, I'm never in sales." So I never see myself in sales. But I was part of a team that launched in Walmart. I launched their internal credit cards and things like that across the UK. And to do that, that was about getting all the employees how to sell it, how to position it. But I never saw myself as a salesperson. I was introducing them to the concept, to helping them to be able to sell it or give it to their clients.
That makes sense.
You call it B2B sales, right?
B2B, yeah.
So to me, it's never. So whilst yes, I've been in those positions. I never really saw myself as a salesperson, but those were the roles that I was in, and I found myself a lot then in internal. I typically move in GE towards Six Sigma and that process engineering because it's all about being better, always about finding that X% improvement, and that was where I started to truly hone my craft, which meant it was about improving sales, improving operational efficiencies, improving these parts of, human processes as they were, and automating them in certain ways. So a lot of that required me to on-sell ideas and concepts to people about changing the way that they did work, changing their perspectives on how they might improve as well.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, as being an athlete, were you ever intimidated being in these environments because these are new environments and you're dealing with people that might have been in business way longer than you?
Look, intimidated is probably, intimidated wouldn't be the right word for how I felt in those situations. Describing myself in a deal room where they're talking a different language, or a language that I barely understood. There wasn't intimidation. There was I probably just, I wanted to learn it. So it was seeing them as, wow, they know way more than me. They understand what they're doing here. I want to know what that is. I want to learn what it is as well. So I wasn't intimidated. In fact, I was probably attracted. I was probably magnetically drawn to,
Mm,
why do they know that? Why don't I know that? How do I know that? Oh, sorry, how can I learn that? So for me, there's probably a bit of, I often think I was perhaps very naive in many aspects of my life as I move forward, that I didn't get that fear. I didn't
yeah.
feel that sense because I didn't, if I was looking stupid, I didn't realize I was looking stupid.
Right. Right. Right.
Ryan, how did you take like that intuitive curiosity to learn, right, the delta in what they had and what you were trying to acquire? Two-part question, right? How did you take that intuitive curiosity, and then how did you apply that to present day now, right? Like, I'm gonna just quick high level research on you, and you've got some self promotion in your T-shirt. How did you take those learnings and apply it to what you're currently doing today?
So one of the bits that I have to say, I was really lucky. I was really lucky that I went to GE, because GE was a leadership factory.
Mm-hmm.
GE was all about making or finding leaders and putting you in the line of fire to learn. And that just aligned to me. I thought I was a GE lifer. I thought I was going to be there forever because of the way they looked for people who were curious. They looked for people who wanted to move forward and shaped you. I was doing a course every 2 months. I went on a one-day leadership course for something, right? And so they fueled my desire to learn and progress and improve, right? So that has stuck with me. So wherever I've gone, and in today, as I'm running my own business, Second Wind, as I'm doing that, look, my value there is inquisitiveness, is love of learning. And so I bring that in the way that I work with small businesses. So if I'm working with business owners who are $1,000 business, want to become $1 million business, want to be a $2 million business, I'm curious about why they want to do it. Why do you want to become that size of business? Why do you want to support those kind of customers? Okay, great. Well, how are you doing it today? And how do you make it that little bit better every single time? So I
Yeah.
really, I'm leaning into my athletic traits in order to help me in this real world, because
Mhm.
now I see the beauty and the value of what we go through as an athlete in
Yeah.
a super condensed manner, right? What we see in a season, what we see in a game, right?
For real.
Okay, is what takes people, could be a lifetime to appreciate. So that's how I bring that athletic side, how GE, I feel, helped me to really shape it and recognize the value of those traits. And that's how I bring it into what I do today.
Yep. Which I think is a good segue. Sorry, J-Bo, just real quick.
Go ahead. You already on it. Go ahead. You already know
Right.
where I'm
If you
going. Go ahead.
could, describe to our listeners what is Second Wind and what is its mission statement? Like, what is the credo? What are you trying to get accomplished?
Look, Second Wind started for me, actually, probably started 15, 20 years ago. I didn't even realize. But Second Wind, its predominant purpose was to help elite athletes transition successfully out of sport. And the way I do that is to inspire, guide, and connect them to the world outside of the game.
Why is that so important? Even though we know the answer, but the world needs to know why is that so needed?
Listen, why is it needed? I'm going to say, who do we serve, right? So I'm going to start with who we serve. elite athletes have honed these leadership capabilities that can help take small, medium, and corporate businesses to the next level. And the businesses, the world, and government needs those traits to help it succeed and spend so much money in investment in training its non-elite athletes to be able to perform at a level to build successful teams. And what it really can recognize is that by bringing in more former elite athletes, it will achieve its goals sooner. So I believe the business, the government, the not-for-profit world could do with more elite athletes in its leadership and management positions.
Mm.
That's who it serves. And so why? Well, because for loads of athletes, we get lost.
Yes.
We finish the game and we don't know what to do next. We are people, floating, lost, doing crazy stuff. All of these things that we do as elite athletes. And I think that we can reduce that dip and get us back on that inflection to where we were. That's why Second Wind is here, is to help basically shorten that period of grief and help us turn around sooner in order to hit those peaks again.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
I, I have so many
Go
more
ahead,
questions.
Bill. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, go
Jay.
ahead, Bill.
Like
Yeah, go ahead. Do you?
he dropped some nuggets here that I want to click into. Um, you know, let me start by saying this is kind of like a personal observation, but I think athletes, regardless of the sport that you've played, you've invested so much time in that sport. It's not a matter of if, it's when, to the point where you're no longer playing that sport and now you're going through that grief. You're earning the grief and you're trying to identify what is the next chapter of my life that I'm going to segue into. How do you identify that in Second Wind to help connect the dots from a passion perspective with these athletes? Because what I find is some athletes have only invested into this one sport that they've done. They haven't invested interest outside of the sport. And so when it's time to own that grief, they feel even more lost because they don't know what they don't know. Right. And so how do you then connect the dots of like taking the passion and the discipline and the commitment of what they did in their sport into their next endeavor?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I do and encourage them all to do is talk. Conversation. Conversation is without doubt the best way to join those dots together. And I also love drawing, okay, but which we'll come into. So it's getting it visual. As athletes, many of us are quite visual. We see the game, we visual. It's like close your eyes and ball's here. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We can see that. So it's starting to then pull this map together. The way that I talk about it is Google Maps. Google Maps, type in a destination. There's a destination. With Google Maps, it's going to say you can take the bus, or you can take the train, or you can drive. You can drive with a toll road, or you can drive taking the scenic route, or you can even walk, take a
Yep.
bike, and now you've even got, or take an Uber or whatever it is. So where I focus on is saying, well, what's the destination that you want to get to? Because once we've got the destination, we can map 6 different routes of getting you to that spot. It doesn't matter which way you go, because in Google Maps, you can start, hey, roads blocked, I'm going to go this way. I'm coming this, I'll leave the car here, I'll take the train for the rest. Getting to the destination is absolutely fine, but you can take the different journeys to get there and accept it's not a linear path. And then it's about describing what that destination is. That destination isn't a job title or anything along those lines, because when it was in the game, especially if we're talking ball sports, when it's in the game, you know what? As long as you've got a number, I'll play anywhere, coach. I
Yeah.
just want to be here to win
Put me in the
with the
game.
team to move forward.
Yep.
So it was all about, well, let's find your game. Because once we can find the game that you want to be in, the sector, the discipline, the sense, the people, is it with people? Or are you working by yourself? Is it inside? Is it outside? If we can describe that destination, right? We've got the game, we've got the field. What position you play, we'll figure that out later. Let's just get you in the game. And once we're there, once we can then describe, I want to feel part of a team. I want to be working towards, I want everyone to have this sense of a goal. I want to be talking, I want to be creative. Now I want to be doing mathematical. All of these different things we can actually start playing with, and we can tie it to the game. So through conversation, it's figuring out what that destination is, working out what those are, how we can explore those things, and then getting comfortable with, there are lots of different routes to get here. Which route are we taking first? What is our next best step? And that's how I like to break it down to piece these pieces.
What do you think is the biggest challenge? What you do? Commit, convincing that these large organizations need these high skilled athletes, or convincing these athletes that you belong here at these organizations?
You answered it with the last part.
Yeah.
Convincing athletes that they have a purpose outside of the game, or in fact, not a purpose, they have a value
Hmm.
outside of doing sport. And so, yeah, you've entertained people by playing and performing. Now we're going to pick that up and we're going to plonk you into this world, okay? And we're going to make that bit work. And we make that bit work by making sure it's in something that aligns to their values, aligns to what they're good at. And for to figure out what that is, I step back from the word passion and I use energize. And I'm like, I don't care about your passion. I'm passionate about it. That doesn't matter. What energizes you? Where do you feel I'm going to get up and I'm going to go do that? When you're tired and and then someone says, let's do this, you're like, yeah, okay, I'll give that a shot. So let's look for what energizes you. And one of the activities I do for individuals is say, okay, from where we are today, just look back over the past week or 2 weeks, maybe look in your calendar, depends how organized you are. What are the things you enjoy doing? What energized you? What got you up and going? Okay. And then let's track that for the next week or 2 weeks. Write it down when you think, I enjoyed going shopping with my mum. I wanted to go with her. Why? Because we got to talk, we got to see new things. She was happy. She was happy because I was there, right? It was good. Great. That's one thing. And we start to piece together these bits that energize you because we're looking for clues. We're looking for clues that can then start being applied towards roles, jobs, or indeed the right game
Yeah.
in the more traditional workforce.
I like
I
that a
like
lot.
that. Me too.
I like that a lot. Like the energize versus passion. Passion. People throw passion out so frequently. That's a really good like intentional question to ask someone.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wanna mix it up too. Let me play a little bit of devil's advocate, even though I agree with you. But for maybe the viewer that may be like, yeah, that sounds good, but what if, right? So we talk about the things that energize you, right? But a lot of times, I don't care what anybody say, you're never gonna get as hyped going to a job as you did coming out of a tunnel. We call it the tunnel. The hearing that crowd, like it's a high that you can't describe. That's probably why athletes are
that's
addicted to
right.
the sports, right? So
Yes,
chasing that, we can't guide an athlete to that level of excitement, right? Unless they want to be in entertainment still. But another thing would be like, all right, I think a lot of times athletes try to search for a different skill set. Like, all right, how am I
hmm
going to learn this other skill set versus saying, similar to what you said, what excites you? What do you want to be around? I'll give you a purpose. Let me use me as an example, right? When I was trying to figure out what it is that I want to do, people were like, you need to get into sales. You're great with people, right? And so they would go there instead of just taking a step back and being like, no, you love being around people. So let's get you into people's business first. It might lead you to sales or it might lead you to
that's right.
healthcare. But if you get a high from being around people, having conversations, let's start dissecting those things. Is that kind of similar to like what your approach is what you're saying? Okay.
Absolutely right. Yes, the thing there, and it's one where because we're athletes, people think we're competitive and we have to win at all costs. But sometimes, and I take this for myself, is well, yeah, I kind of want to win, but it was about the people, it was about the team, it was
Bingo.
the team, right? I didn't mind losing. Honestly, I could lose well, right?
Hmm.
As a team, as long as we're nailing the process bits. We
Process.
passed well, we moved up the field, we did this, we actually scored a goal, everything
Yep.
went well. They were just better than us. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, let's go and
Yeah.
get better again. So it's the team. So yeah, I think the devil's advocate bit you were going down in, yeah, it's right. We can't chase that moment, and that's probably not
Hmm.
not healthy. And I forgot a gentleman's name, and it literally just gone from my head. So, and I'll kind of quote his sense, but it's about the emotion.
Mhm.
And so, as we walked out of the tunnel, it was
Hmm.
an emotion that we felt. It wasn't walking out of a tunnel. It was at that moment I felt exhilarated, proud that I was going to represent people. Those were the bits that we felt. And it's a case of saying, okay, We're not going to get it doing the exact same thing because it's sport. This is the beauty, the privilege of sport. But let's break down that emotion and see where else does that emotion exist, which links into this sort of energize and look around and be in the game. So it's what was the emotion you felt? Okay, and how can we relive or refine or rekindle small parts of that emotion as you move forward into your next career, into your further career?
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. I think also just going back, what made your experience so unique when you were talking about when you got into the industry, you were so curious and so fascinated by what was going on. Your ego didn't get involved. So you didn't even realize that you were a fish out of the water to be intimidated. You know what I mean? When I'm
Yeah,
looking at it, because I just imagine when Bill and I, when we were at the financial firm, we were in, I don't care, man. I was intimidated. Bill could tell if he was or what, but I was. They were speaking a whole nother language. And although I was curious and fascinated, I couldn't help but to think like, okay, I do want to compete not only with others. I never wanted to compete with others, but myself, because that's what an athlete does, compete with themselves. But I was like,
mhm,
I felt like I was coming in, when you're an athlete, right? And you step foot on the soccer field, you kind of already know your tangibles, if you're fast, if you're strong. So you got something to
yeah,
play with. And
yeah,
like, all right, I'll build everything else around over time. But when we
yeah,
got into our industry, I was like, yo,
yeah.
I'm naked. I don't know what I got. What tool am I going to bring in? I think that was the intimidating factor. The fact that, yeah, I'm good with people, but I'm like, I don't know how far that's going to get me when they're speaking a whole nother language. So how do we help a athlete that may be wired like me? Like, look, I knew I could run fast and jump high on the field. I don't know what I'm good at, in this environment, whatever the new environment is.
Well, so for me at GE, I was lucky because they put us through different courses and training courses, which meant I could see, wow, they want us to do presentation skills. I would stand up
Hmm.
like I'm used to shouting at someone 90 meters so they can hear me with 10,000, 20,000 people screaming. Projecting my voice is fine, right? So things like that started to become natural. After GE, I went to a company, HSBC, and then
Yeah,
one of the largest banks
that's a
globally,
big
right?
one. Yeah.
So I'm at HSBC. I'm in Hong Kong at this time, and very different culture to GE. So that was a shift. I went from this, I'll say, American gunslinging GE. We got
Yeah.
to buy this. We're going here, da da da, to a very British and sort of Asian Chinese culture. Okay, speak when you're spoken to. Wait your turn. This is moving. This is how we do things here. It's got to fit into this. So very different culture where I felt like the American in the room rather than the British guy being more conservative. But there wasn't the same training. There wasn't the same overt. If you need to get to here, you need to learn this. It was much
Hmm.
more cloak and dagger, much more. Well, how do I figure that out? And it was also different. So therefore, for me, it was quite challenging at the start because I thought, well, how do I learn that language? They're not sending me on a training course. They're not sending me on anything. I've just got to sit here and learn. That's actually when I did my MBA. Now, I did my MBA simply
Hmm.
because I knew I could do more treasury, more banking, more vocabulary specific activities. So it was the skills and knowledge that I would get from the MBA. That's what I wanted. I didn't need the network. I wasn't looking for all of that. It was literally, I need to learn so I can sit in the same room with these people and understand what they're saying. So so I think so. The advice really is that you got to learn. You've got to find ways to get the skills and knowledge. So that intimidation or that fear or that feeling, I don't belong here. It's like, do you know what? I better pick up a book and read. I better get on YouTube and watch something. I better go and acquire the skills and knowledge through doing an MBA or
Yeah.
doing a course. Now, what was even better, and I only know this as I went through it, is every assignment I had, I did it on HSBC. So I got a organizational design assignment. So I was like, I wonder if I could go ask the head of people and culture or the head of HR, hey, I'm doing this assignment. I just want to get your perspective to see how I did it. Hey, do you mind? So basically it was, hey, do you mind if I share my assignment with you so I can learn more about how you do your job? Of course. Okay, great. Did that one. Then I've got one about financial planning and analysis or
Yeah.
treasury. Hey, do you mind if treasurer, the treasurer?
Yeah.
this guy didn't speak to people. It was pure numbers.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course, Ryan, come in. I'm happy to talk about that. So I started to realize, or I realized as I went through it, that I was learning the skills and that knowledge from the MBA, but I was bringing that straight back in, and that was an excuse to go and speak to the leadership, who I was like, I don't understand what they're saying. They're not inviting me into the room. I want to know what they're doing, which meant they then saw that I was willing to learn what they do, which meant when I was in a meeting with them a bit
yeah.
later, they were like, "Hey, Ryan, you understand this, blah, blah, blah." Suddenly, everyone knows who I am. Everyone knows that I'm prepared to learn, that I'm learning this language. So by getting that skill, by getting that knowledge and bringing it back into the organization, I was able to carve a path through
Yeah.
what felt like a rather hierarchical and structured organization.
Initiative. You took initiative.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you took initiative. No,
It's a
think
simple
about that's
word,
what it
but
summed
yeah,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect, perfect. I like that. I mean, still, like I said, you was humble enough to take the initiative to be curious. Yeah, you were curious and humble enough to take the initiative to ask, to learn the culture, which is literally learning the language, which allow you, give you the tools to navigate. I love that. 'Cause I'm trying to give these kids the tools, man, that they need. I hope they picking these gems up because you're literally teaching them a crash course on how to navigate based off of your story and everything you did. And before we wrap this up, because I got one last major question that I wanted to ask you, and this is for actually both you and Bill. It's the question I was going to ask in the beginning. Now that you guys are parents and you guys both have experience in coaching and as playing, and we know the landscape of youth sports is changing, especially out here in the United States, like amateur athletes, damn, they're getting paid and at the high school level. So because you guys done it already, how are you guys mentally preparing your young student athletes to be able to navigate in this world of athletics? Ryan, I'll let you go first.
It's a great question. It's a great question. I'm living it at the moment. My eldest of three, he's a junior in high school, starts his senior next month, and he has passions of going over and doing soccer in the US. Right. So from Australia, trying to make his way to the US. And what makes me proud about him wanting to do that rather than try and replicate what I did, which was leave school and go pursue the
Yeah,
sport, is he recognizes the need for education and how education alongside sports can actually propel him to those next levels. Okay, so that for me is that first bit that I'm really pleased with, and what I'd recommend to anybody trying to navigate is make sure you keep that balance because you're going to need it for the next 60, 70 years of your life. Okay. In terms then of playing, I had it this morning, so I hope my middle son doesn't listen to this bit. But um, he discipline and trusting the process is really important. Setting your standards and maintaining those standards are vital. He was out later than he should have been on a school night on a Sunday night, coming into what is now Monday morning for me, and he's like, "I don't want to do swim. I don't want to do swimming. Drop him. He's in the pool at 6 a.m. I
yeah,
don't want to go tomorrow. One of my friends isn't going. I'm a bit tired. Stop there, son.
right,
This is the discipline. You've set the standard. You've set the goal, what you want to achieve. Now you've got to go for it." So those really are two sort of me for live examples. One, the importance of education and playing and honing your skills, right? Yep, the sport is good, but get your education. But then secondly, just name your goal, but hit your standards. Just keep going. Just keep going. Trust and learn to love the process. And of course, this morning was fine. He woke up, he's happy, right?
right,
He's like, "Yeah, I'm
right.
going swimming. I love swimming in the morning. It's great." I said, "Yeah, I know you do, but you got to push through it." So yeah, those are, I think, two real live lessons for me at the moment.
Yeah, I think for me, I won't. I think those are really two really good nuggets. I'll be additional with that, but a bit supplemental as well in the sense of for me, Jabari, it's getting my kids to understand because the commitment level has been expedited so much at younger ages versus when I'll say I'll kind of even compartmentalize this to us Americans because Ryan, it sounds like your experience was a little bit different from a commitment perspective of you all get to leave school at 16. We don't get to experience that here in the States, right? Like we don't leave until you graduate high school at 18 and then you go into, college and at that point you're an amateur for all intents and purposes, anyone that played collegiate sports in the States, the sport is first, school is second, though the school will tell you school is always first, but make no mistake about it, you being on scholarship, there's an ROI on that scholarship investment, and there's a lot of time that's invested in the actual sport, equally as much in school, but there are, you know, plans in place that help school become easy in the form of academic advisors. Like everything is planned out for you, right? You choose your major, you pick your classes, you pick up your books, you go see your counselor, your study hall advocate through various
Yeah.
times.
You don't own your time. You do
It's
not own your
planned
time.
from
Yeah.
8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Your day is kind of booked out. You're trying to steal an hour for a nap in between. But so
Yeah.
it's getting my kids and the kids that I happen to have the pleasure of helping them grow to understand that the commitment level has been expedited, and the sport in which you're trying to play and what you articulate you're trying to do requires a certain level of commitment, and you really being okay with not having fun with your peers that aren't committed in a sport like
Mm.
this. And that's a really hard thing to balance because you're still growing mentally, you're still a kid yourself, haven't really experienced life, whether you're 16 or 21. There's a society that says, oh, you can skip out on watching film, or you can skip out on this workout and come hang out with us because we're doing X, Y, and Z. And that subtle decision is going to be the difference maker in terms of the execution of the person that you're competing with, who you haven't even met yet, who's in a totally different state that you'll meet when you go to that school in that locker room, because they're so laser focused and can compartmentalize social versus their commitment level. And truthfully, the athletes that do continue to grow, that is synonymous across all of them, right? Like they can weed out the noise and stay compartmentalized and stay tunneled in. I need to do X, Y, and Z to get to my end goal. And so it's for me, it's how do you teach that at 12, at 11, albeit with the understanding that they're still 12 and 11 and want to play video games and want to do all these other things. And how do you plan out their agenda that says we can save time for that, but I also need you to start to commit to the discipline that is your craft, if and only if you say that you want to do X, Y, and Z. And if at any point throughout this growth you say, I no longer want to do X, Y, and Z, okay, that's fine. Then we still need to take this foundation of commitment and apply that to something else, to your point, Ryan, of anything else that energizes you. So that way we can still parallel path the foundation that will make you success, because that's all athletics is, right? The things that happen behind the curtain is foundational for success in any endeavor that you're going in. It's kind of my perspective on that. And while this may sound good, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but like that's kind of what I lean on, right? Is how do you try to train these things and then allow them the space to do it? Like I feel very passionate about not being that, Jabari and I talk about being that shadow parent of like, you have to do this, you have to do that. No, I'll give you the tools and tell you what needs to be done. It's up to you to go out and execute that. And if you don't execute it, or you don't get the results that you want, let's have a conversation, identify where the disconnect lies, so it becomes a teaching and learning moment in this moment. So that way, the next time you see yourself in this adversity, you know how to approach it, you know how to attack it, and there's a plan that you've been taught to do so.
That makes sense. So it's something like it's not necessarily the pressure, but it's the structure because we understand the principles that come with providing consistent structure over time. And we know that it's the recipe for success no matter what endeavor you pursue in. But we choose sports because it gives you real time feedback that can kind of keep that student athlete engaged, right? But like you said, Bill, that you pointed out, the hard part is the outside distraction and us understanding as an adult, you do want to have some form of childhood. But us also knowing that you're competing with somebody that lives and breathes it. We want to give you a fair shot. It's like, where's the balance?
It
There's
is.
someone on the other side of the country that want to eat your lunch, you know?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think, not to go too far down this rabbit hole, I think that there are some that will use examples of the haves and the have-nots. And I think in a vacuum is percentages or representation that will suggest that have-nots have a different level of commitment and work ethic because they see the sport as their way out to exposure, expansion, a
Hmm.
better life,
Hmm.
etc. What I would argue is that there are some folks that are part of the categorization of the haves that equally
Yes.
have that intrinsic
Yes.
motivation to go do so. So I don't think those things, you know, are mutually exclusive. I think it truthfully comes down to the individual person. And I would even venture to argue there are some folks that are born naturally with that intrinsic motivation, but I also think there's a space where you can teach intrinsic motivation as well. But until a person or a young person, woman, man, is exposed to it, again, they don't know what they don't know. And so, to Ryan's point, you kind of have to be intuitively curious to ask the questions, to observe how they operate, and then insert opportunities to help them bridge the gap.
Man, I appreciate that. Appreciate that, fellas. Well, Ryan, man, you graced us with a solid hour and a half. I appreciate you. I know you got a busy Monday. Before I let you go, man, if you can kind of share with everybody, man, where can they find you and how can they support you or even be a part of what you got going on with Second
Sure
Wind?
thing. You absolutely. You can find me a couple of places. Find me on LinkedIn, Ryan Gonsalves on LinkedIn. Tend to post quite a bit, and I'm reasonably present on there. And also, you find me on Instagram, be it Ryan Gonsalves on my 001, or on secondwind.io. So that's with the number 2ndwind.io, and check out the website. You can get in touch there as well.
Perfect, perfect. All right, well, shoot, y'all just enjoyed another conversation with Athlete Mindset Reset. I'm Jabari, aka Coach Jabo. Until next time, y'all know the drill. Look, I'm out here stuttering. That's how you know I'm tired. Stay positive, stay productive, but most importantly, stay in the present, y'all. And we out of here. Appreciate you. Let me what's this? Man,